The starship Eclipser hung above the planet like a silent predator. Its sleek metal body reflected the light of the twin suns, casting long shadows over the barren land below. The alien crew moved with perfect precision, scanning the desert, the rocks, even the sparse clouds that drifted lazily across the sky. Everything was measured, recorded, and analyzed, but nothing in their databases had prepared them for what was coming. A figure appeared on the horizon, walking slowly but steadily. At first, the aliens thought it was a mirage, a trick of the light over the scorching sands. But the scanners screamed, beeping violently. A red warning flashed across the main console. Unsurvivable entity detected. The captain's blue-skinned fingers hovered over the controls. He frowned, tilting his head. No life form in the known galaxy could trigger such an alert. Not even the fiercest predators of the outer sectors. Not even the war machines of the Krylax fleet. And yet, here he was. The human walked forward, his steps confident despite the rough terrain. His clothes were torn in many places, revealing scars that crisscrossed his skin like a map of battles fought and survived. Some scars were fresh, bright against his pale skin. Others were older, faded into silver lines that spoke of old wars and old pain. His hair was long and matted with dust, his eyes sharp and alert, scanning the ship as if he had been expecting it all along. The crew murmured among themselves, their voices low and anxious. "How can he still be alive?" one whispered. "The scanner. It says he cannot be killed." Another shook his head, stepping back instinctively. They had studied life forms for centuries, catalogued millions of species, but nothing had ever set off a warning like this. The captain finally spoke, his voice calm but carrying an edge of concern. "Bring him to the observation deck," he ordered. "We need to see him." As the human approached the landing platform, the scanner's warnings became frantic. Beeps echoed through the control room. The red light blinked violently. Entity resistance 100%. Survival probability 0. The words made no sense. How could a single being survive everything, everywhere, and still stand unbroken? The human reached the base of the platform and paused, letting the wind whip through his hair. He looked up at the ship with quiet determination. There was a calmness in him, a stillness that suggested he had survived horrors the universe could barely imagine. Every scar told a story, the loss of comrades, the betrayal of allies, the pain of hunger, the agony of failure, and yet the will to rise again. One alien finally broke the silence. He walks as if he owns the world," it said, voice trembling. Another nodded. "The scanner cannot lie. He is unkillable." The human's gaze met the captain's through the glass. There was no fear, no anger. Only a quiet strength, a sense that nothing in this galaxy could stop him. Not weapons, not storms, not time itself. The scars on his arms glinted faintly in the alien scanner's light like badges of honor. Each line was a story, each mark a warning. The captain studied him carefully. "Why are you here?" he called through the translator. "Identify yourself." The human's lips curved into a small, tired smile. "I am just passing through," he said, voice rough but steady. "I do not want trouble, but if it comes, I will survive it." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. The aliens stared in awe, realizing that this human was not just alive. He was something entirely different, something the galaxy had never seen before. And as he stepped closer to the platform, the wind carrying the dust around his boots, one thing was clear. The scars that marked his body were not signs of weakness. They were warnings. They were proof that life had tried to break him, and failed. And now, the universe would know. The aliens stood frozen, their eyes fixed on the human who had just stepped onto the landing platform. The scanner continued its frantic beeping, red warnings flashing across every display. Unsurvivable entity detected. Survival probability 0%. Failed. The words made no sense, yet the numbers did not lie. The captain swallowed hard. He had seen many dangerous life forms in his long career. Predators that could tear ships apart, bioweapons that could erase entire colonies, but none had ever registered like this. None had ever carried such raw, unyielding survival energy. "Identify yourself, human," the captain commanded, his voice firm but cautious. The translator emitted a soft beep before the human's words came through, calm and steady, carrying a weight the aliens could not ignore. I am just passing through, he said. His voice was low, rough from the desert winds, yet there was an edge of authority in it, the kind that demanded attention. I do not seek conflict, but if it comes, I will survive it, the council murmured among themselves. One officer leaned closer to the console, studying the red warning lines. Our weapons may not affect him, the officer whispered. The scanner is warning us. It reads his scars, his history. He is unkillable. The word sent a shiver through the room. The captain frowned. He had dealt with stubborn enemies, creatures who refused to surrender, but this human's presence was different. There was something almost sacred about it. The human carried not only scars, but stories. Every line on his skin was a battle fought, a lesson learned, a life survived. The human's eyes scanned the ship, calm and steady. He did not flinch at the weapons trained on him. He did not step back when the scanning beams passed over him, analyzing his body, calculating the odds. He stood as if he belonged here, as if the universe itself had given him permission to survive where others would fall. Why is he alive? One of the younger officers whispered. Nothing should have let him live. Nothing in the galaxy could survive. This. He gestured at the display, showing the list of impossible survival events the human had endured. The scanner had pieced together fragments of his life. Crashes from orbiting stations, battles against superior forces, starvation for weeks, injuries that should have been fatal. Yet here he was, walking, breathing, unbroken. The captain studied the human carefully. His mind raced. Could it be luck? No, the human's scars told a different story. Luck could not leave so many marks of survival. Luck could not etch lessons into flesh, could not create a being who refused to die no matter what the universe threw at him. The human spoke again, voice calm and even. I have survived because I refused to give up, because I could not let those who depended on me fall, because life, every life, is worth fighting for. Silence filled the room. The words were simple, yet they carried weight. The council began to understand that this human strength was not only physical, it was mental, emotional, spiritual. It was the quiet, unshakable will to endure. The courage to face death and continue walking, scarred but alive. The captain nodded slowly. Warnings are one thing, he said, but seeing him, it changes everything. This human is not just strong, he is proof that survival is more than numbers, more than technology, more than chance. The human lowered his gaze slightly, his eyes reflecting the twin sun's light. He had walked through battles that would have broken anyone else, yet he carried no hate in his voice. Only resolve, only the quiet reminder that life, in all its fragility, could endure. One officer, braver than the rest, finally spoke. Captain, should we attack him? The captain shook his head. No, the scanners warned us for a reason. If we harm him, we will only witness the impossible, and I am not willing to test that. The human's gaze met the captain's again. There was no threat in his eyes, only understanding. He could feel their fear, their awe, and he did not judge. He only wanted passage, only wanted to survive another day. But the warning still blared in the background, repeating the same words over and over. Unsurvivable entity detected. Unkillable. Survival probability 0%. Failed. And slowly the aliens began to realize the truth. This human was not just alive. He was something far greater. He was a force the galaxy could not easily break. A living reminder that survival was not a question of odds, but of will. And as the twin suns beat down on the scarred figure before them, the captain understood one thing clearly. The universe had just met a human who would not die. The tension on the platform was nearly unbearable. Every alien crew member's eyes were glued to the human who stood calmly, scanning them with quiet intensity. The red warning lights on the scanners continued their frantic flashing. Unsurvivable entity detected. Resistance 100%. Survival probability 0%. Failed. The words seemed almost like a chant, repeating themselves, warning them again and again. One officer, younger and eager to prove himself, could no longer resist. He raised his plasma rifle, its energy coils humming with deadly power. His hands trembled slightly, but his eyes burned with curiosity. Could the human truly survive a direct attack? The scanner said yes, but the officer refused to believe it. Captain, he said, voice tight, I want to test him. I want to know if the scanners are telling the truth. The captain's eyes narrowed. He had learned long ago that curiosity often led to mistakes, but there was no stopping this young officer now. With a reluctant nod, he allowed it. Proceed carefully, he warned, but do not underestimate him. The officer took aim, the plasma rifle glowing bright blue. He fired. The beam of pure energy streaked across the platform and struck the human squarely in the chest. There was a flash of light, a sharp crack in the air, and the human staggered slightly. But he did not fall. His chest bore a deep scar already, a line from a past battle, and now it glimmered faintly as if absorbing the attack. The scanners screamed even louder. Entity resistance 100% unkillable. Alarms blared, echoing through the ship. The officers froze, jaws dropping in disbelief. Their strongest weapon, something that could pierce armored hulls, obliterate entire creatures, had done nothing to him. Nothing. The human took a slow step forward, each movement measured, controlled. He did not attack, yet his presence felt like a storm waiting to break. Do not make the mistake of thinking I am weak, he said, his voice calm but firm, carrying a weight that silenced the platform. I do not fear death, and I do not fight to impress. I fight to survive and to protect what matters. The young officer's hand shook as he lowered the rifle. His pride and fear collided, leaving him speechless. Around him, the crew whispered frantically to each other. He survived a direct plasma strike? One asked. How is that even possible? The captain stepped closer to the console, studying the readings again. He had expected resistance, but nothing on record could match this. Nothing. He realized that the human's body was more than flesh and bone. Every scar, every mark was like armor forged from experience, pain, and endurance. The universe had tested him relentlessly, and he had survived it all. The human's eyes met the captain's through the observation glass. There was no malice in them, no desire for revenge. Only understanding and quiet warning. I do not seek enemies, he said softly. But if you choose to attack, remember that survival is my nature, and I do not forget. The room was silent, the only sound the faint beeping of the scanners and the soft hum of the ship. Every alien present understood that this human was not ordinary. He was a living testament to resilience, to the power of will, and to the unbreakable spirit of humanity. One officer finally whispered almost to himself, "The scanners were right. He really is unkillable." The human's lips curved into a faint smile. He did not gloat. He did not threaten. He simply stood, battered but unwavering, proof that life could endure even the most impossible odds. His scars glimmered faintly under the twin suns, a silent testament to everything he had survived. The captain took a deep breath and finally spoke. Enough. We will not test him further. He paused, his voice heavy with awe. We must learn from him, not fight him. He is not just alive. He is a force the galaxy cannot ignore. The human nodded slightly, as if acknowledging both the warning and the understanding. He turned his gaze back to the desert horizon, ready to continue his journey. But the aliens would never forget this moment. A single human had faced the most advanced weapons of their fleet and survived, unbroken, unyielding, and utterly unkillable. And somewhere in the back of their minds, the warning echoed again. Unsurvivable entity detected. Unkillable. Survival probability 0%. Failed. The galaxy had just witnessed a human's true power, and the aliens understood that this was only the beginning. The alien crew stepped back, still in awe of the human's survival. Yet curiosity overcame fear. Who was he? How could one being endure so much pain and still stand unbroken? The captain motioned for quiet, allowing the human to speak. For the first time, the scars and the red warnings faded into the background. Now there was a story waiting to be told. The human lifted a hand, his fingers tracing the lines of a long, deep scar that ran from his shoulder to his chest. These are not just marks, he said, voice calm but carrying the weight of years. Each one tells a story, of survival, of loss, of choices I had to make to keep going. The aliens listened closely, their eyes wide. They had fought wars, traveled through deadly storms, and faced countless enemies, yet nothing they had seen could compare to the depth written on this human's body. I was a soldier, he continued. My home planet was destroyed in a war that should have ended me. Cities burned, people I loved, gone. I lost friends, family, and everything I held dear. And yet I survived. Not because I was strong, Not because I was lucky, but because I refused to die. Because giving up was never an option. The captain leaned forward, intrigued. You survived. Everything? The human nodded slowly. Everything! Ambushes, starvation, betrayal. Even death itself tried to take me more times than I can count. Every scar you see is a memory, a lesson. A reminder that life is precious and worth defending. Some of these scars were given by enemies, others by my own mistakes. But each one made me stronger, more aware, more unyielding. An officer whispered to another, almost breathless. He survived what? How is this possible? The human's eyes softened, reflecting a hint of sorrow. Survival is not about the body alone, he said. It is about the mind, the spirit, the will to continue even when everything tells you to stop. Each time I was knocked down, I remembered why I had to rise again. I remembered the people who depended on me. And I remembered that life, no matter how fragile, is worth fighting for. A hush fell over the crew. This human did not speak of hatred, revenge, or anger. He spoke of endurance, courage, and hope. The aliens had faced countless foes who fought for domination or conquest. But here was a being whose strength came from the refusal to surrender, from the protection of life itself. The captain studied him carefully. And these scars, he asked quietly, they make you unkillable? The human shrugged slightly, a small weary smile appearing on his lips. Not unkillable in the sense of being invincible, he said, but unyielding. I have faced death so many times that fear no longer controls me. I have learned to endure, to adapt, and to continue, even when everything seems lost. That makes me survive where others do not, the council murmured among themselves. It was difficult to understand. Their species measured strength in weapons, numbers, and technology. Yet this human measured strength in resilience, in the scars carried proudly on his body, in the refusal to bow to the impossible. The young officer who had fired the plasma rifle earlier took a hesitant step forward. And why do you walk alone? He asked, voice soft. Why have you survived so much without anyone to help you? The human's eyes darkened for a moment, filled with the weight of memories. Because sometimes survival is lonely, he said. Sometimes the universe leaves you to face its challenges alone. But even in loneliness, even in pain, you can find strength. You can find purpose. You can continue, because life itself is worth it. The captain nodded slowly, realizing something profound. This human strength was not only in his body, or in his scars, or even in his unbreakable survival. It was in his heart, in the lessons he carried, and in the way he refused to surrender to despair. The human looked at the alien crew one final time, voice steady and full of quiet power. I have survived to tell you this. Scars are not weakness. They are proof. Proof that life, that hope, can endure anything. And I will carry that proof wherever I go. The aliens fell silent. No one moved. The human story, told through words and scars, had changed something in them. They understood now that survival was not measured by weapons or numbers. It was measured by the will to endure, no matter the cost. And in that moment, the galaxy's understanding of humanity began to shift. The alien council decided to test him. They could not fully trust a being the scanners marked as unkillable, not because they wanted to destroy him, but to understand him, to measure the force that had survived the impossible. They created a test, simulated storms of energy, collapsing rock formations, and fields of scorching plasma. It was their most dangerous experiment, designed to break anything in its path. The human stood at the center of the desert, watching the preparations quietly. His body was already marked with countless scars, each one a story, each one proof of survival. Yet he did not flinch at the looming dangers. He had faced far worse. Death had chased him before, yet he had never surrendered. The first wave hit, plasma storms that swirled like living fire. Bolts of energy struck the ground around him, scorching the sand into glass. Aliens held their breath, watching him carefully. The human stepped forward, each stride calm and purposeful. The plasma licked at his skin, yet he did not falter. Fresh burns formed along old scars, merging pain into proof of endurance. The second test was collapsing rocks. Massive boulders were hurled from the air, crushing everything in their path. The human ducked, twisted, rolled, moving with precision and instinct. His body bore the brunt of impacts, bruised and battered, but he pressed on, unbroken. Every scar on his arms, his chest, and legs seemed to shine faintly under the twin suns, like battle medals etched in flesh. The alien scanner screamed. Survival probability, 0%, failed. Alarms blared, echoing across the desert and the platform. Officers looked at one another in disbelief. Their most advanced simulations designed to destroy had failed against a single human. Even the captain could not hide his awe. He moves as if he expects this, he murmured, as if danger itself cannot touch him. The human continued walking, eyes forward, heart steady. He did not panic. He did not cry out in fear. Each step was a testament to endurance, to experience, to the lessons carved into his very being. He did not merely survive. He adapted, learning from every strike, every impact, every near-death experience. Finally, the last test approached. A simulated plasma storm combined with collapsing rocks and a field of shifting energy barriers. The most dangerous trial yet. The aliens watched silently, some holding their breath, others ripping consoles with trembling fingers. The storm struck. Rocks fell. Energy surged. Yet the human moved through it all, body twisted and dodging with supernatural instinct. Scars opened and bled, yet he did not stop. He fell, rolled, stumbled, yet rose each time with determination written across his face. Blood and sweat mixed with sand covering him in a testament to survival. When he finally reached the center, the alien crew was silent. Their strongest tests had failed. The scanners blinked red, flashing the same message. Unsurvivable entity detected. Unkillable. The human stood there, breathing heavily, yet calm. His chest heaved, his body bruised, his skin marked with fresh and old scars alike. But his eyes, those sharp, unwavering eyes, showed no defeat. Only strength. Only endurance. Only the quiet, unshakable will to survive. The captain finally spoke, his voice low and full of awe. We wanted to understand him, but he has taught us something greater. Strength is not measured in weapons or defenses. Strength is the will to endure, to continue and to rise again no matter the cost. One officer stepped forward, voice barely audible. He is more than a survivor. He is proof. Proof that life, even against impossible odds, will always find a way. The human's lips curved into a small, tired smile. I did not do this to impress you, he said softly. I did this because survival is a choice. Because life is worth every scar, every wound, every hardship. And because if you learn nothing else today, remember this, scars are not weakness. They are proof that you lived, that you fought, and that you endured. The aliens remained silent, staring at the scarred human before them. He had passed their test not because of luck or skill, but because he carried something far stronger. An unyielding spirit that refused to be broken, no matter the universe's fury. And in that silence, every officer understood a truth they would never forget. This human was not just alive. He was unkillable. The desert fell silent after the tests. The alien stared at the human, still standing, still breathing, still scarred but unbroken. For the first time, fear mixed with awe in their hearts. He was no ordinary being. He was a living force shaped by pain, endurance, and the stubborn will to survive. The captain stepped forward, voice calm but heavy with meaning. We have tested you. We have tried to break you, and yet, you endure. Why? The human wiped the sweat and sand from his brow. He looked at them with eyes that had seen centuries of suffering and yet held hope. Because survival is not just about strength, he said. It is about purpose. It is about protecting what matters. It is about refusing to give up, even when the universe itself seems determined to end you. The officers exchanged glances. They had fought battles, built weapons, and conquered enemies, but they had never faced a force like this. They realized that no scanner, no weapon, no strategy could measure the strength of a being who refused to surrender. His scars were not marks of failure. They were proof of endurance, of a life that had survived impossible odds. One young officer finally spoke, voice trembling. Captain, he is more than unkillable. He is inspiring, even to us. The human turned toward the officer and nodded faintly. I do not fight to inspire. I fight to survive and to protect life. But if my survival shows others that life is worth fighting for, then it has meaning beyond me. The council murmured, realizing a truth they had never considered. This human's power was not only in his body or his scars, it was in his heart, his mind, and his spirit. He had endured wars, betrayal, hunger, and pain, yet he carried no hatred. He did not seek revenge. He sought life, and he protected it fiercely. The captain's gaze softened, filled with respect. We sought to measure you, he said quietly. We wanted to understand your resilience, but it is not measurable. Your strength comes from your heart, your will, your choice to continue. No machine, no weapon, no scanner can quantify that. The human nodded. Strength without purpose is nothing, he said. I have survived to carry hope, to protect those who cannot fight, and to remind the universe that life is sacred. Every scar on my body is proof that I did not give up when I could have. And that is why I endure. A long silence followed. The aliens had studied the universe for centuries, yet they had never seen such courage, such resilience, such determination. Their weapons, their strategies, even their most advanced scanners had failed to break him. And now, they understood that he had not only survived, they had learned from him. The young officer stepped closer, his voice still shaking. Will you teach us how to endure like you? How to survive when everything seems lost? The human looked at him and smiled faintly. Endurance is not a lesson I can teach, he said. It is something you must choose. You survive by refusing to surrender, by protecting life, and by carrying hope even when darkness surrounds you. The universe will test you, but your scars, your struggles, they will make you stronger if you refuse to break. The captain nodded slowly. He realized that humanity was not just a fragile species in the galaxy. Humans were survivors, fighters, protectors. Their strength was measured not by weapons or technology, but by their ability to endure, to rise, and to hope when everything else failed. The human's eyes scanned the horizon. I do not seek to fight you, he said softly. But know this, I will survive. I will endure, and I will continue to carry life forward no matter the cost. That is my choice, and it is my proof. The aliens lowered their weapons, understanding at last that this human's scars were more than physical. They were a map of survival, hope, and indomitable spirit. They had tested him. They had tried to break him, and yet he remained unbroken. In that moment, the human was no longer just a being they studied. He was a teacher, a warning, a symbol, a living testament that life, even against impossible odds, could endure and inspire the universe to respect it. The twin suns cast long shadows across his scarred body, and the captain whispered, almost to himself, the scanners were right. He is unkillable, but not because of power, because of choice, because of will, because of humanity. And in that quiet desert, the galaxy understood something it had never known. Survival was not about avoiding scars. It was about wearing them, learning from them, and letting them remind you that hope is stronger than fear. The desert was quiet now, the storm of tests long past. The alien council watched silently as the human stood tall among the scorched sand, his body battered but unbroken. Every scar, old and new, glimmered faintly in the light of the twin suns, telling stories the aliens could only begin to imagine. The captain spoke softly, almost in awe. We have seen strength before, but never like this. He is not just unkillable. He is proof that life itself can endure anything. The human turned his gaze to the horizon, scanning the distant mountains and empty valleys. I do not seek to conquer, he said quietly. I do not seek to impress. I only seek to survive, and to protect life when it matters. The aliens had come to understand that his power was more than physical. His scars were not weaknesses. They were evidence of survival, lessons written in flesh, reminders that hope could endure even when everything else was lost. Each line on his body carried history, every mark a memory of hardship overcome. And yet his eyes held no bitterness, no hatred. Only determination. Only the quiet strength of someone who had endured more than any being should ever have to. A young officer stepped forward, hesitant but moved by what he had witnessed. You have shown us what it means to survive, he said. But will you leave us now? The human smiled faintly, a small, tired curve of lips. I must continue my journey, he said. There are more worlds, more challenges, more life that needs protecting. But remember this, survival is not just a measure of strength. It is a choice. And it is the scars we carry that remind us why we choose to live. The captain's voice grew heavy with respect. You leave us with more than fear or caution. You leave us with understanding. Humanity is extraordinary. The human nodded, stepping forward toward the edge of the platform. His boots kicked up clouds of dust, his body scarred, bruised, and still alive. The scanners had already labeled him unkillable, but it was more than science could measure. It was spirit, will, and resilience that no machine could calculate. "Remember this," he said softly, his voice carrying across the desert. "Scars are not weaknesses. They are proof. Proof that life can endure, that hope can survive, that even when the universe tests you beyond reason, you can rise again." The aliens remained silent, absorbing every word. For centuries, they had measured life through technology, through strength and weapons, yet none of it mattered here. They had seen the impossible, a single human scarred and battered standing when nothing else should have survived. He had endured storms, plasma, falling rocks, hunger, and death itself, and yet he remained. The twin suns began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the sand. The human paused, looking back at the alien crew one last time. There was no threat in his gaze, only understanding and quiet warning. Live, protect, endure. That is what makes you strong, not weapons, not numbers, not luck. Only the choice to continue. With that, he turned and walked toward the distant mountains. His figure, small against the vast desert, was still imposing, for it carried centuries of survival in each step. The aliens watched him disappear into the horizon, the final red warnings of the scanners still blinking. Unsurvivable entity.